I'm so excited to talk with you about the great Frederick Douglass. In your definitive biography, you describe his remarkable education, and in particular, the transformative experience of learning how to read. Tell us about the education of Frederick Douglass.
Well, he spent the first 20 years of his life as a slave, and his education involved absolutely no formal education. Never a day of his life in an actual classroom. But his education is in both experience, the experience of being a slave, the experience of learning to navigate relationships with overseers, with his owners, and for that matter, even with the various kinds of networks of black people that he knew on such a large operation like the Y Plantation on the Eastern Shore. His education, though, accelerates, if you like, when he gets sent to Baltimore. When he's about 7 years old, comes back to the Eastern Shore for a while, but spends about 11 of his 20 years as a slave in Baltimore. Great ocean port, maritime industries. He works in the shipyards as a teenager. He meets all kinds of people in that urban environment. He attends 4 different churches and names the churches, names the preachers, the ones he liked, the ones he didn't like. He had a mentor who helped him read the Bible, particularly the Old Testament, the Hebrew prophets, a man called Lawson, who was we'd probably call him a kind of storefront preacher. And Douglass made connections in the streets, both as a laborer, a worker, and then as a person always trying to find what he could learn next and learn next. He gains his literacy from his mistress, Sophia Auld, who was the wife of Hugh Auld, the brother of his owner. And that literacy was a complete turning point in his consciousness. And even though Hugh Auld, the master at that point, tried to make him stop reading, in fact, there's a great line in the autobiographies where he says, one day Hugh Auld came in and told his wife, Sophia, don't you ever teach that kid again to read and write, and when he found out that what was happening. And this is the reason why, if you give an N-word an inch, they'll take an L, and all of that. And Douglass reflects later, he said, you know, that was the first anti-slavery speech I ever heard. If this mattered if reading mattered so much to this man, and he feared it so much that it was going to open my mind or something, then maybe I should go do more of that. And then eventually, when he's about 12 years old, he purchases or barters for his own copy that you write about in your book of the Columbian Orator, which was a collection of great speeches and a kind of a manual of oratory. And there is a pretty direct line one can draw from his possession of that book. It was a school reader, first compiled in actually 1797. It's a late 18th century book, but Douglass loved that book and just ingested it. And when you read the 20-odd page introduction, this kind of manual of oratory, you really begin to realize why this was so important to him. It's not just about, why is oratory important, but it's even about the physicality of it, how to modulate the voice, what to do with your arms and your shoulders. And there's a whole section in it about how oratory, which of course was a very common and powerful thing in the 19th century, it even has a section about how oratory must reach the moral heart or consciousness of the audience, that an orator must have not just an argument, but a message, an emotional message and an intellectual message. So he has possession of this reader from when he's 12 and 13 on, and it was one of the sole possessions he carried with him out of slavery when he escaped in 1838. So his education is never formal until he becomes a serious reader, and he does eventually. But his education is a lot of experience of this problem of slavery.
It is extraordinary to hear you describe the influence of that book, The Columbian Orator, on Douglass. When we met last year in New Haven, you brought a copy of the book out, and it's a sacred artifact. And to think of Douglass, as you describe, first of all, buying his reading lessons with bread from boys on the streets of Baltimore, and then paying with bread for this small book, and then having it transform his life, is an unbelievably powerful testament to the freedom of the human mind and the transformative power of reading.